friends, Phone Truths is brought to you by my friends in Sky Mobile, and now everyone can expect more. So I'm a Sky Mobile customer myself these days. I've been all over the country and honestly, I found it amazing. And speaking of amazing, let's talk about the brand new iPhone 16, which is available now on Sky Mobile. So look, you do know me. I'm a proper nerd, and when it comes to tech, the iPhone 16, it's possibly the ultimate dream phone, all right? Listen to some of these features. For instance, you've got camera control. It gives you an easier way to quickly access camera tools so you can take the perfect shot in record time. The improved ultra-wide camera lets you take incredibly detailed macro photos and videos, whilst the 48-megapixel Fusion camera captures stunning high-resolution images. And to top it all off, with Sky Mobile, you can get your hands on the new iPhone 16 from just €30 a month, plus get unlimited data, calls and texts for just €15 extra a month for life. So in a world of less, you can always expect more with Sky Mobile, Ireland's newest network. Based on a 36-month credit sale agreement, price without credit €1,065, SIM, 12-month minimum term, unlimited data, standard texts and calls. Further terms and credit check apply. How's it going, friends? Welcome back to another episode of Phone Truths, the podcast where we learn more about the lives of our guests through the prism of their mobile phone. Now, today's guest is most certainly one of the OGs of Irish Instagram, but she's someone who's gone on to build, in only the last couple of years, one of the most recognisable clothing brands in the country, and it is only getting bigger. So much so, she's kind of now the leader of a cult. Today's guest is Rosie Connolly. Well, Rosie Connolly, this is an absolute joy to have you on Phone Truths. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. As you know, I'm not a one for doing a lot of podcasts, but you got me with this one.
We'll get into your phone in a few minutes' time, but I think the big question that everyone will want answered is, what is it like being the leader of a cult? It is.
I mean, cult leader was never the intention for my life. That video is so funny. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, Fourth Arc is now an Irish cult, so I've heard.
Yes.
So I've seen in that video that's gone viral, and so many people tag me in it. But yeah, look, it's great, and I'm not going to say I'm a cult leader, but if that's what you want to call it, then I'm happy to lead it.
You must be, though, looking back on the last, I think you were saying it's nearly 4 years old.
4 years, yeah.
But like 4 years, realistically, it's not that much time to have grown that brand to where it is now. You must be still looking kind of going, what?
Yeah, I haven't caught up. Like, my brain hasn't caught up with where the success is on the business side. Like, I feel like I'm just chasing my tail constantly and like trying to digest everything that has happened over the last 4 years. Like, it's been the best journey and just such a I've learned a lot about myself. I've grown a lot as a person. It's been an amazing journey. Ups, downs. There's lots of ups, lots of downs, but like, that's the fun of it, and I'm doing something I love, so I can't complain.
Yes. When it first started, you know the way you would have goals for things and where you could see it going, you know, realistically, did you ever see it getting as big as it has?
Not in a million years. So the goal really was, so at the time we launched, it was like the height of COVID. We were all locked down, drinking way too much wine most nights. And you know, it got to like 4:30, 5. You're like, well, we should go on. All right, you know, there was nothing else to do, so that was allowed. And my husband Paul had lost his job. Well, his job stopped because he was a refrigeration engineer and all the pubs and restaurants were closed. So it was always something that I had wanted to do, never knew how, when. It was kind of a vision board goal. And then obviously a couple of glasses of wine were flowing, and we had our mortgage deposit saved, and obviously the housing market was a mess, and we were like, well, right, money burns a hole in my pocket. So I was like, we have all this money and we can't buy a house. What will we do with it? And so we decided, let's give it a go while he has no work. And in my head, I thought, if this takes off and like it covers a salary for him, and then I have my influence and work on the other side, happy days. Like, that's brilliant. He has an income, I have an income, brilliant. And obviously it has skyrocketed since then. So it's been, and it happened just so fast that I feel like it's a rocket ship, and I'm hanging on to the back being like, okay, just don't let go. Just hold on tight. It's been wild.
But like, that sounds terrifying as well.
It's terrifying. See, people asked this before. They were like, what was your plan B if it didn't work? And like, naively, we didn't have one.
Yeah.
And I think naivety got us started because we didn't know what the journey ahead was going to be like. So I think that's what I love about entrepreneurship when you're starting something for the first time, because you don't know what's ahead. And that naivety really stops you from being frightened by the stuff that has come. Like, so many things have gone wrong. And if I'd known the journey, I probably would have gone, oh God, I don't know if I'm able for this. Like, it's a lot. But you just get through it and it's fun. Like, at the end of the day, I always say, like, we're making clothes. We're not saving lives. So, like, you kind of keep that context within the business. Obviously, we are responsible for our staff, and you know that was scary, hiring your first staff, and you're like, I'm now responsible for someone else's salary, not just my own, and like their family and their mortgage and their bills, and that is a little bit scary. But it makes you get up in the morning and make sure that it's working, not just for you but for your team as well.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
And what's it like walking down the street now? Like all of us have done, and been like, I've been even abroad now, and you're like, oh, there's a Fourth Arc top. You know what it used to be, where you'd see people wearing flowery shorts on holidays, and that's how you identify
them. Or the
GA
jersey.
Now it's or the cool camps jerseys.
Yeah.
Now it's Fourth Arc gear.
Yeah, it is. Do you know what? It's still so surreal, and like the kids will point it out a lot. Like especially Remy, because she's only almost 6. She'd be like, there's Fourth Arc, and I'm like, no pointing, don't be pointing at people. But she really notices it. But it's weird because I want to just like smile and wave at everyone, but then I realise like not everyone knows who I am. They actually, a lot of people buy the brand that have no clue who I am, which was the goal for the brand. I wanted the brand to grow beyond what I can. But it's amazing, and it's still so surreal, like, especially getting on flights or something and you see people queuing, you're like, oh my God, like it is. I have to pinch myself a lot. I don't think I think it's going to take me like 20 years. Like in 20 years' time, I might look back and go, how wild was that journey? But in the moment, I just have to keep going, because there's always like something to do, and there's endless to-do lists and stuff to be done. So.
Yes. And now, obviously, I don't want to be trying to like pry for trade secrets or, you know, anything
Yes,
that like, you know, yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Would you ever have any plans to move into like other forms, like not just kind of the more activewear stuff? Or would you have any plans down the line?
I mean, there's always plans down the line. We'll always test and try things. Our kind of motto for next year is like a 10% buffer, like wildcard. So when it comes to product, when it comes to budgets for marketing, having a 10% buffer to kind of do something completely off the walls and see what works. Because we're at that stage now where we can try different things, and we're growing at such a rate that it's important to kind of test the waters on new things. Not everything's going to work. But I can, I mean, there's definitely plans there.
Okay,
Carl.
Good. That's as much as we're going to get.
That's all
I can
you're
tell.
Gonna get. That's all you're going to get.
See, though, what you were saying there in terms of, it was very much a case of do it and learn as you go along. And if you looked back now, you probably wouldn't have done it. I feel like there's a lot of like successful business people, some of which we've already spoken to on this podcast, and that seems to be across the board, where people often stop themselves from going for something because they're worried about what could go wrong, or worried about if they fail. Yeah. Were you ever worried about failing, or did you just think, no, I have to do this?
I didn't think about it not working because we just had to make it work. And I also think the worst thing you can ever do is not make a decision. So if there's a decision to be made, you're better off making it and making the wrong decision than not making a decision at all. Because at the end of the day, if you make a decision and it's wrong, you're going to learn from it. If you don't make the decision, you're staying in the same place. You're not going to grow. You're not going to fail. You're not going to learn anything. Yeah. And you actually learn so much by trying things and them not working. And I also think reaching out to people that have done it before, they'll always tell you what not to do. And I think that's great. Like, you'll always have a list. If someone comes to me and they want to start a business, I'm like, right, this is what you definitely need to do because we didn't do it and it kind of caught up with us, or, you know, all these things, mistakes that you make, but you won't learn that until you do it. But I just think I'm a firm believer that you need to just jump in the deep end and then you'll figure out how to swim, because you don't have time to panic about it. You just have to fucking swim. Yeah. So it's like you just have to go with it. I think you can get like this decision paralysis where you're like, I can't make a decision. I'm just going to not do it and I'll just stay in the same place. The best thing you can do is just make the best decision that you can in that moment with the information you have. If it's wrong, you're going to learn from it. You're going to move forward. If you don't make it at all, you're in the same position.
Do you think in Ireland we're bad at that?
I think we're very critical of ourselves, but we're also critical of others. So we're first to point out when someone fails, and we're first to point out other people's failures. And I think it's just part of, I think it's human nature. I don't even think it's such an Irish thing. I think it's just something that it's very quick to, especially in the media, to kind of point out what someone did wrong.
Yeah.
But look, people are always going to talk. Like you can't let your life be on hold because someone might have an opinion. At the end of the day, I always think if someone has an opinion of me and I don't know that person, or I'm not inspired to be like that person, or I wouldn't like to be in their shoes, then it doesn't really matter.
Did then the influencing that led up to the formation of Fourth Arc, do you think that actually helped with forming that mindset of like, I don't care what anyone thinks?
Yeah, and come here, I will say, I'm not at the point where I'm like, I absolutely don't care what anyone thinks. I definitely think as human nature, you do want to please and you want to be liked, and that's just like, I don't think there's any harm in saying that, and you want people to enjoy what you're doing or enjoy the brand. But I do think, on one side, I think having the influencer career helped me to understand my audience and like my influence over people's fashion. Like I knew that people bought from me and bought clothes that I shared. So that was a great insight. But no, I think it did expose me to the fact that like if I want to have a career like this, not everyone's going to like you, right? So, and not everyone's going to like your brand, and not everyone's going to like those clothes, and not everyone's going to like the colours, and that's okay. Like it doesn't have to tick the box for everyone. You're never going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine because some people like coffee, some people like matcha.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Okay, well, look, we're going to get into the phone now because there's loads of other things.
I'm scared to even look at my notifications.
I'm dying to get into, but I'm sure they'll naturally come up through the conversation. But I suppose, does your phone play a big part in your personal and your professional life?
Yeah, it is literally permanently attached to my body. And some days I just want to throw it off a cliff and never see it again. You know, when life is like at you and it's like constant noise. I think I've gotten moments in my life where I've just gone, oh my God, I'd just love to just hand this phone or lose my phone. Like I'd love to lose my phone for a week. We're good in that with the kids. We really try to put the phones down if the kids are talking to us, and like we'll pull each other, myself and Paul, we'll pull each other up on it.
Yeah.
Because if it's very easy, especially when you're working from home and you're sending an email and then they start talking to you and you're half listening and you're but your eyes are on the phone. And I remember he sent me a link to it was like a snippet on Instagram, and it was about like if your child starts talking to you, no matter what's happening, put your phone down and give them eye contact.
Yeah.
And we really try to live by that. And again, we'll pull each other up on it, and I'll say, Paul, he's talking to you or she's talking to you, and we try not to bicker with each other about it, because sometimes you can go, I have an email to send, but in that moment, your child just needs your attention. And I think with the kids, kids will pull you right back down to earth as well. You have young kids. Yeah. Like, you don't have time to be, like, they will just keep at you. They don't see the phone and go, oh, you're busy. I'll head out. It's like, I need a snack. I need, they're very demanding of your time, and rightly so, especially in the home.
Working then with your partner, is it hard to create those personal, professional boundaries?
Do you know what? I think we've gotten into a really healthy place with it. Thank God. We're very good. Well, he could definitely take work home more than I would. I'm quite strict with my time, and if he tries to talk to me about anything Fourth Arc, particularly on a Sunday, I'm like, we'll chat about it on Monday.
Very good.
And it's just like my brain, especially Sundays, they're like my sacred day. It's my favourite day of the week. It's just it's a day that if I don't get my usual Sunday, I can't tackle the week ahead. It's like my reset. And if he starts talking about an email or whatever, I'm like, we'll pick this up at 9 a.m. on Monday, because I actually it's just not a time that my brain is not in that flow of work, and I can do it Monday morning, but on Sundays I'm in like total relaxation mode. And we try to do like no car Sundays, where we'll like just walk up to the park, and we try now it's hard now Harry has football matches on a Sunday, so obviously we have to bring him to a football match. I can't make him walk. But it's just such a sacred day where I just let my brain settle. I try and put those limits in place, but my phone is very distracting. So I find I can half write an email, half reply to a text, send half a voice note, and then someone will go, did you get that? And I'm like, oh my God, I mentally replied to you, but it never happened.
Thank God there's someone else who experiences this.
Yeah.
Because I find that with the phone, there are so many avenues in which you can now be contacted, be it through a DM, an email, a WhatsApp, a text message, a phone call, all of those different things. And then you can be in the middle of doing one thing and then another one distracts you, but mentally you've ticked the other box off.
Or do you have people that contact you on all different platforms for different things? So I'll have like, in Instagram, me and my sister would be sending each other recipes, right? Then in WhatsApp, it'll be like, Jesus, like her daughter's not well. Or so there's a serious conversation in one. Then you're sending memes on TikTok. And so within the same hour, we're having 3 separate conversations.
Such mixed messages.
It's so mixed. I'm like, are you okay? But also that's really funny. And like, it's just this constant. And I do it with my friends as well. Like we'll be having a really serious conversation in one app and then the other app is just complete chaos. So I find like that, I'm like, even with work, I'll have email, then I'll have, obviously, we WhatsApp each other, and then we have Slack, which is like our internal messaging app. So I'm like, I'll have said something on one platform, but I can't remember if I've said it on. So it is very distracting. And I think if your brain isn't anyway easily distracted, because I'm easily distracted, like a little bit of sparkle, and I'm like, oh, like I find it hard to focus. So the phone is probably not the best place for me to get my best work done, but I am known to be in the office with my laptop open, but still emailing
on
from
the
my phone.
Yeah. Okay, look, I want to get out into a bit of nostalgia stuff around your phone, right? So I want to know, first of all, what was your first phone?
Do you know, I was thinking about this the other day and I had to look up the name of it. It was the Motorola Razr, the pink.
The real flat one?
Yeah.
Now that's what we haven't had. Yes, I remember that one.
Yeah. I swear I must have it somewhere in my mum's house.
Wow.
But it was like hot pink and it flipped up and I used to slam it closed, you know, just for the drama effect.
Yeah.
Like loved it.
And can you remember what the first text you ever sent was, or like anything around what it might have been about?
It was probably to my mum, because I think I was one of the first of my friends to have one, so I didn't have anyone to contact. So it was probably to my mum, and it probably said like typical like hello there, and then like full message, and then or do you remember WB at the end
Right
of text?
back.
As if like what else were they meant to do? Not right back. Like God, if you didn't put WB at the end, they may not respond.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
But my mum still puts like mum at the end of messages as well.
Has your relationship with your phone changed a lot over the years?
Yes, it has. It's gotten a lot worse.
Okay.
Well, I think when you've now, because it used to be just a phone, then it was like now it's emails, now it's my calendar. If it's not in my calendar, like if I lost my phone and that calendar wasn't backed up, I honestly wouldn't tell you where I am tomorrow.
Okay.
I rely so heavily on my calendar telling me where I am and what time. And then maps, like I Google Maps my way to the school, even though I know the way. Because I'm like, it could tell me that there might be an accident. And then like I'm so reliant on Google Maps.
How lazy you become with it.
God,
yeah,
it's disgraceful. And now my sense of direction is shocking because I just arrived somewhere and then if someone said like, if my phone died, I couldn't get back. Couldn't get back. There's no way. Or that feeling of like if your phone dies, I actually feel like I've been unplugged.
Yeah.
And I need to be plugged back in. It's the weird. I'm so reliant. I hate that I'm so reliant on it, but I am, and I feel like most of us are.
Did your phone ever get you in any trouble at any point, like when you were younger?
Come here, we've all sent the text where you're like, oh my God, I sent it to the wrong person.
So that's actually a question for later on, but let's answer that now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're talking about someone and you send it to the person and it's like, how do you can't say, haha, that was a joke. Like, because generally you'll have had a row with that person. Yeah. I think the whole like not being able, no, you can unsend messages now, but then they know you've unsent it. So it's like, what did you unsend?
And even now someone like innocently deletes a message and you're like, what the hell was that about?
But then instantly you need to know what the deleted, I care what the deleted message was more than any other message.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it's gotten me into like major trouble before.
When you were in, like, say when you were in school or when you first got that phone, the idea of obviously being an influencer didn't exist.
No.
It's also recent. Or like, I mean, like YouTube only started in 2005. But was it?
Did it?
Yeah. Like this is the thing we forget.
God.
This whole industry and world.
2005 feels like 5 years ago.
This world we live in, it's still so new.
So new. Yeah.
But was it something that you kind of at one point went, that's where I want to be? Or did you fall into it?
No, I fell into it. I tripped and fell into it.
Okay.
I definitely, it's not something I chose, like actively chose. I was pregnant with Harry at the time and I was only 23 or 24, still living at home. And I was working in Arnott's as a personal shopper. And I remember being pregnant being like, oh God, I looked up maternity stuff and I was like, I cannot wear this stuff. Like it's just, back then, it's changed a lot, but maternity clothes were just a big, huge, flowery sheet that you had to wear. And I was like, I'm only 23, 24. I want to wear something nice. So, and I was obviously working in the fashion industry. So I started sharing my outfits and how you can just wear regular clothes. Obviously to a point. There comes a point when you need the maternity jeans because the bobbin trick just doesn't work anymore. And I just started sharing it. And then I was sharing it to nobody. It was just like my sisters and my mom and stuff.
And was this on Instagram?
Instagram.
Or what? Yeah.
Back in the days when like people used to just take a picture of their lunch and put a weird filter over it and post it. Like it was shocking. But like it was what we did. And I started on Instagram and then it just started to grow. And then I was on maternity leave and then I remember a brand offered to pay me to post something. And I was like, you're going to pay me? I was like, this is so weird. I was like, it's weird, but it's great. And I'm on maternity leave. And then I just like stumbled and fell into it, and just here I am 10 years later.
And what point, did you kind of think to yourself, right, this now it's time to make the jump and make this a full-time career?
Well, I think because I had my maternity leave, I was off for the 6 months, and then I started to figure out, like, I really didn't want to leave Harry, and I was like, I really want to stay at home and I don't want to go back, and I'd no one to mind him. And so I was like, oh, I'll just see if I can kind of like bump up my earnings with this. And then I never went back. So it just kind of, I grew and grew and grew that way, but I never had to leave a job because I was already on maternity leave. So I think that's a hard one when you're trying to figure out, you already have a job and you've an income, and when do you jump? And I know that a lot of people in that space end up doing too much for about 2 years where they're trying to double job.
Yes.
And they burn out, and then eventually they move over, because it's very hard to leave a stable job when you're not really sure what your income is going to be, you know, going forward. But because I didn't know any different, again, naivety, I was like, oh, I'll just keep going and see.
But whether you realise it or not, you obviously know, you're obviously really good at choosing the time to jump.
Yeah.
When it comes with Instagram and Fourth Arc and all, like,
again, I just say you kind of have to jump and then figure it out afterwards.
Yeah.
Because like, when are you ever ready? I always think about this with kids, and it's like, you know, people are, I'll wait till I'm ready to have a baby. I'm like, are you ever ready though? Like, is everything going to be like ticked off by the time you get ready to do something? There's always improvements that you'll want to make, or I could earn more money, or I could have a bigger house, and you'll always find a reason to put things on pause. And I just feel like, you know, sometimes you just have to just go with it. And like, I trust the timing of my life a lot. And like, sometimes in the moment you're like, oh my God, like I was pregnant, still living at home. My mum was going through cancer treatment at the time. It wasn't an ideal time for me to come home and go, hey, by the way, I'm pregnant. But it all worked out for the better. And like, again, sometimes in the moment you're like, this is not the best timing for this, but it always works out. And like, that's all planned out for you. I believe it's all planned out for you ahead of time.
Do you?
Totally. Your life is like, these things are meant to happen. If it wasn't meant to happen, you'd be pivoted in a different direction. I trust that like, whatever's for you will always happen at the right time. So when you don't get an opportunity, or something doesn't work for you, I always believe it's because there's something better down the line.
Do you mean that from like a spiritual side of things?
Yeah, for sure. I think like I'm a firm believer of like, the right things in your life will always happen. And like, come here, I've had horrible things happen in my life that I'd love to say that should never have happened, but it did, and there's always a benefit, and not a benefit, but like a growth there that has been needed, whether it's personal growth or growth of your family or growth of relationships around you. I think seeing the positives out of even negative situations it's just a mindset. And I think once you can always try and find that positive, it'll actually just guide you in the right direction, and you'll let go of things that don't go right for you, and you'll just go, right, it's not meant to be, and move on, instead of holding on to like the negative side.
And I presume then that really feeds into success in business, because if you were to hold on to all of the mishaps and things
you
that go
could
wrong,
never get up in the morning, you know. And there's always things that go wrong, or you might have wanted to do something and it didn't work, or you might have wanted to get into a certain store and that didn't work. And I think I've surrounded myself as well with the right team that all kind of think like that, and they're very like positive thinkers. And come here, I'm not always positive. Like I don't agree with the toxic positivity, and like life is shit sometimes, and that's totally fine. And I've been through it myself. And you can be in that shit moment, but it's not staying in that shit moment forever. It's like figuring out that, have that moment, have the cry. I cry all the time. Like I cry all the time. I'm such a crier. I've cried in work. I've cried in front of everybody. I won't cry today, I hope. But I just think like, have your emotions, feel your emotions, and then just, you know, keep going.
Well, look, we're going to get into now the highlights really of your phone. Some of the moments in your life where your phone was playing a bit of a supporting role and you didn't even know that it was there for it. So first of all, do you have any favourite memories that you've managed to capture that are in your camera roll that you find yourself going back to all the time?
Yeah, do you know what? I have a gorgeous one, and I will share it with you, but it's of Remy kind of taking her first steps, and we're in lockdown, and we were kind of at the time figuring out the business and what we were going to do, and I actually enjoyed lockdown. Like I loved being at home and being with her and having us all, because Paul was always working. Like he was gone 6 days a week, so actually having him back in the house was just so lovely. And he's recording and I'm behind her, and like I'm like literally willing her on. I'm like, do it. She's no hair, she's so baldy, like she's so much hair now. I'm like, she actually had no hair for about 2 years.
Yeah.
And I just love having that memory, because I can see the excitement and the pride in my face. Because generally I feel like as parents, particularly as moms, we're always on the other side of the phone and we're recording everything else. And it's nice that I'm actually in it, because I get to have that memory of like being in that moment with her. But I've so many, I think that's one thing I wish I had done with my dad before he'd passed. Obviously, I was only 18 when my dad passed away. And I was talking to Harry recently. We were doing this thing on TikTok. It's like all these kind of deep questions to ask your kids or for them to ask you. And one of them was, have you any regrets? And I was trying to think, and I was like, I'm not a believer in regrets, but one of the things that, it's not that I regret that I didn't do it, but not having enough photos of my dad. And it was because phones weren't a thing then. And like having videos of his voice. Like I know there is recordings in my mom's house, so like camcorder stuff, but I'd love to be able to have a video or something on my phone that I could hear him and see him. And like, I feel like now I capture everything and I keep everything. And once my data is full, I just get a new phone and like keep that old phone with everything on it.
Okay.
Because I'm terrified of like, if someone passes, I don't want to know, like all those insignificant videos that you might think, okay, they're not for Instagram, but they're so important when that person's gone.
Yes.
And so I capture everything now, like everything. And I just think it's so nice because it's one thing I wish I had of my dad.
Yes. Okay. How did your dad pass? Do you mind me asking?
My dad drowned, when I was 18. So he was missing for like 2 days. And actually, one of the things he would ask me before we came here was like, was there ever a phone call that completely like knocked you or kind of threw you off?
We can actually go into that now. Like I know we're jumping around, but okay.
So I have this weird thing about phone calls, and I don't answer phone calls a lot unless it's from my husband, my mom, or my business partner is probably the only other person I answer the phone to. But back when I was 18, my dad was missing, and my mum was away. So it was my sister and I that were dealing with it with the guards, and there was a phone call made to me. I didn't realise, and they didn't know that I didn't know, but he had been found. And obviously there was a miscommunication there. And I got a phone call to just kind of say something about my dad's body. And I was like, obviously in my eyes, he was still missing. And they hadn't, and he's like, I'm so sorry. I thought you knew that we have found him, or we think we have found him.
Yeah.
And they needed to know something about him to identify him. And I remember my legs just went from under me. Yeah. It was one of those things I wish I'd never answered the phone. And I was so young.
Yeah.
And now I think I still have that fear when there's an unknown caller or something on my phone. I'm like, and I went to therapy for it for years, and I was like, why can't I answer my phone? Like I just get this sinking feeling when I don't know what's on the other end. I think like if you tell me you're going to ring me about something, that's fine.
Yeah.
But not knowing what the topic of conversation is can really throw me. It stems from that. It's just like my whole world just got turned upside down like in an instant.
Yeah.
And again, not the person's fault on the other end of the phone. They were part of the Coast Guard and they didn't know that there was a miscommunication there. And look, at the end of the day, we got him back and we were able to bury him and, we got our closure. But I think the way it was delivered was just like sick.
There's never going to be a good way of that being delivered, but still.
Yeah, I remember I was actually outside my mum's house. I was heading to get back in the car to go out and look again, and it was like dark. And I actually don't know how I got back into the house. I know my boyfriend at the time had to carry me back in, and then I had to tell my sister who was in the house.
Okay.
And I think she knew like straight away. But like those phone calls, and I actually don't know how my mum found out. Somebody rang her, one of my uncles, I think. But like those phone calls, I think, are just never going to be an easy one. And I feel for the person that was on the other end of the phone because I know that they realised that I hadn't been told.
Yes.
And they obviously, I don't think I continued the phone call. I think I dropped the phone. But it was horrible for everyone involved because I'm sure that's not how they intended to deliver the news either.
Yes.
They had just a number to ring to get information, and I was the number because my mum was away. So yeah, I think that still comes back to like I'm always on my phone, but answering phone calls is just something that it still gives me that anxiety.
But how could that not live with you? You know what I mean?
And look, it is what it is. Like sometimes I am known to also like see a number and then Google the number.
Yes.
Before I answer.
Okay, fair enough.
So I do sometimes do that. But I just like to know what's coming. And if someone says, I'm going to ring you about whatever, I'm like, great. But unknown numbers or even just someone that I know ringing me without warning gives me a little... like, oof, it's not a nice feeling.
Well, yeah, and I think it's very understandable that would be triggering. And I'd imagine there's a lot of people listening now who completely
have had
identify
phone calls
with
that just flip your world upside down. And like everyone, I'm sure everyone has gone through something like that where you've just had to, or someone that's had to deliver bad news.
And we forget about that as well.
The person delivering it,
the emergency services and people who do that on a daily basis, and it's thankless work as well.
And knowing you're going to rip this person's world apart in seconds when they answer the phone. It's just like, that's the side of phone calls that would break your heart. But like, you just have to keep going, don't you? It's just part of life, unfortunately. And I have a great family and great people around me. And I know my dad's always, I ask him for everything. If I've lost my keys, I'm like, Dad, come on.
Okay.
I have somewhere to be. Like, I talk to him all the time. And I think that's important.
Does your dad play into that spirituality that you spoke about?
Yeah, I think so. Like my dad, he was religious, but like we were never really religious family growing up. But I think I never wanted to believe that I couldn't talk to him ever again. And like the way my life has panned out since my dad passed has just been incredible. And like even my mum was sick, she had cancer and she's gotten through it. She's 10 years post breast cancer. She's doing great. And like I know my mom talks to him all the time and we all kind of lean on him when we need to. And I always think when you lose someone so close to you, like they're not gone. They're always, I know I'll be up there for my kids, making sure to play out things and make sure and teach them a few lessons along the way, but like making sure that things work out for them. And I do think knowing that I always feel that connection to him and I always will. And we talk about him all the time with our kids and they know about Granda Pete and, you know, they don't know the details. Obviously, they're too young to know anything about what happened to him, but it's important for them to know, like they get three. They were like, oh, we're so lucky we get 3 granddads because I've my stepdad who's been in my life since I was 7 and like he's amazing. And they have him as their granddad. They have my husband's dad and then obviously Granda Pete then up in heaven. So yeah.
For anyone who's going through grief, like is there any advice that you found worthwhile at the time or do you just have to?
Do you know what I think? Not even on a personal level, but if you're going through something as a family, just staying close to each other. Like I remember it literally drove us together because I have 2 sisters and my mum and like we were the only ones who knew and felt that. And I actually feel like my mum experienced it differently because she still felt like our mom and she had to mind us, but yet she'd lost her partner as well. And there was that extra trauma and I didn't get it because I wasn't a parent at the time. But now I'm like, God, you had an extra layer of weight to carry because you were trying to care for all of us. But it also made me understand that everyone grieves differently. Some people want to talk about it all the time. Some people don't want to talk about it at all. Some people want to go to a grave. Some people can't go to a grave. And it's just understanding there's waves of that. And it doesn't, I won't say it gets easier. I think you get better at making it a part of your life. And like this, obviously there's moments when you're just like, my wedding day, like that was heartbreaking not to have my dad there. But I was blessed to have my stepdad walk me down the aisle. And like, things like that, I'm like, there's always those big moments in life when you're just wish that. I feel sad that he didn't get to experience that. Like he never got to be a granddad. There was no grandkids. Now there's like, God, how many? 8 grandkids in the family? Yeah. And I know he would have been an amazing granddad. And I know my mum finds that hard, that she's like, she gets to be a grandmother and she's like, you know, I feel like he was robbed of that. But it's understanding that as those moments pass, and I think the firsts are always so hard, that first year of all those first Christmas, first birthdays, first anniversaries, and you don't know how you're going to act or how you're going to feel. And I find with me, sometimes the lead up is a lot worse and then on the day I'm actually okay. Yes. So it's just, we haven't given yourself a bit of grace and like just give yourself space to feel what you're feeling and you will get through it. And like, you will laugh again, you'll feel happy again, you know, and it's okay to actually say, God, I actually feel happy today, or you know, and it's that's not saying that you don't miss that person all the time. Yes, it's just allowing yourself to continue on and live life, and that's what anyone that's passed would want for you. You know, they don't want you to sit and cry all day. Although I do say to Paul, if I ever died, I'm going to haunt you. You better be sad. You better be sad all the time. I'm like, you know, when people say like, move on. No, don't move on. No. I'll have a voodoo doll if you move on.
After a certain amount of time, maybe we'll consider
but
it.
I'm not in my house and not in my bed. I'm like, I always say to him, like, you need to cry every bloody day. It's different on that side. But anyone else would want you to move on.
Thank you so much for sharing that about your dad.
Look, it's as we're talking about phones, when I looked at the question, I was like, that's the only phone call I remember that just knocked the legs from under me, literally.
To circle back then to like what got us onto that, it was about like, you know, you were saying about how you're so glad that your phone captures all these memories. And it's often funny because all we hear about is the negative of, oh, people are living their lives through their phones and yada, yada, yada. But like, isn't it so funny? There's also such a blessing on that side
That's
of
all
things
you
too.
have. Like, you have your memories up here, but having that physical. I remember I used to ring my dad's voicemail all the time just to hear his voice. And actually, it's so weird because I did check only a while ago, and his number is obviously still saved in my phone, but they do
They recycle the numbers.
Yeah, and when I clicked in, I checked it on WhatsApp one time because you can see the profile pictures, and it's just a young guy, like a young teenager, or whatever. And I was like, you know what? It's kind of like, part of me is like, that's a new life. He obviously has a number, and all his life is going through, and all his friends are ringing his phone. It's like that next level.
Yeah.
But I do think there, obviously be in the moment. And I do think, when you're at a gig or something and you're like, God, it'd be lovely for everyone to just put their phones down and be in the moment. But I think memories, they are sometimes the best thing to have is like videos, so you can hear them, see them, and capture. And also to the moms as well, get in the photo. Like, your kids aren't going to look back and go, God, mom's hair didn't look great that day. Or, like, you're not going to care. Especially, that's all that's left for your family if you're gone. So it's like, get in the photo. It doesn't matter. And I always say, sometimes we'll take photos and I'll ask Paul to take a picture of me and the kids, and I'll say it's just for us. So it means you don't have to take 50 of them. It's not for Instagram.
Yeah.
And I'll take photos just for us. And he knows then it's like, I don't care about the angles, the lighting, whatever. It's just a photo for us to have, because he knows if it's an Instagram photo, I mean, the lights are coming out. We could take 50 photos and like, let me see them. And it's a full on project. Whereas I'll say to him, just for us, and he'll just snap a quick picture in the moment. And I think it's so important to remember that not everything has to be posted. And like, there's some special memories that I have on my phone that I would never post, but I just think are so important.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well, because so oftentimes people think when it comes to the world of influencing and people who are influencers, let's say, people think that they know everything about them and they know everything that's going on. And it's like, you haven't even scratched the surface.
Do you know what's funny? Will I tell you something that nobody knows? Well, I actually don't think anyone knows. Not online anyway.
Is exactly what we love to hear on a podcast.
I'm sorry, I had no plans on telling you this. We got a dog back in August. And we've had a puppy like since August.
Exclusive
That's
here?
your exclusive.
Oh!
I've never shared him because I just said, you know what? I share everything in my life, right? I've overshared for years on social media. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to keep him for us. And like, sometimes people see me out walking and they're like, oh, he's the most gorgeous dog. His name's Riley. He is like the centre of our household.
So what kind of a dog?
He's a little golden lab. He is... Now, when I say little, he's absolutely massive now. Like, he's huge.
So I have a lab, so we need to talk.
He's just gorgeous.
Is he destroying the place, though?
I've no skirting boards left.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's, I actually said to Paul, I said, I know when I'm going to get him for Christmas, I'm going to get a piece of skirting board and put a bow on it and rub it in like some peanut butter, because he loves peanut butter.
Yeah.
And just hand that to him. He has destroyed, but I never thought that I would be someone that would let that happen and still absolutely adore him. Like, he is just the best. He's so good with the kids. He's brought so much joy. Like, I feel like a house is only a home when you have a dog there.
Yeah.
And Paul is definitely a dog person. I was like, I love dogs. I had a golden retriever growing up, and I never said, I was always like, yeah, we'll get a dog someday, but not now and not now. And then eventually he was like, we're getting a dog. And I said, okay, we're getting a dog. And we surprised the kids. And I have the most precious video of them coming. I made them sit on the stairs, all three of them, and they turned their backs, and we brought them in and put them at the bottom of the stairs. And my daughter just bawled crying.
Oh.
And like, I've sent it to friends and stuff, but like, people that don't know me that well, like our close friends know, and obviously our family know we haven't. And then people that don't know me that well will see me out with the dog, and they're kind of going, where did she get that? But it's like, it's actually like a nice buzz to be like, I didn't share him. Like, it was nice to keep that now. I've shared it with everybody. But like, it was just nice for us to have him as ours, like not having to share him to the world and like get the perfect picture. And like, I have my phone camera. I never knew that I would become that person that when you go into your camera roll, it's just dog.
Yeah.
Like, every photo, everything he does, I'm like, oh my God, he's just gorgeous. Now, can I walk him? No, because he's too heavy for me. He pulls, so I need to train him.
But you know what? Labs in particular at the start, they're tough work. But
he just wants to go to the dog park and run for hours. Like, loves other dogs. Like, he's like my husband in terms of personality, because he loves people and he's like obsessed with like talking to new people and everything. Whereas I'm a bit more of like an introvert. He's definitely the extrovert in the family.
Okay.
But he's just gorgeous. But like that, I was like, I have so many photos and everything of him, but I was like, I kind of like having him just for us. He's the most gorgeous thing in the world. And especially, the puppy face. Like,
the puppy face
was
is just so beautiful.
Got about 6 weeks out of that face. And now I can't lift him. He's just huge.
How
and
quickly?
He's a lot of growing to do. Like, he still has... He has these like gels. Paul was like, got that from you. I was like, thanks, babe. Because we always flagged that, like, from my dad's side, we all have this chin. And I was like, thanks. The dog has now inherited that as well. But he's gorgeous, like absolutely gorgeous. But like that's one side of it that I've captured everything on my phone, but actually enjoyed not sharing that.
is it something like, do you feel a pressure, or like, is that something that maybe you've started to realise that you were feeling a pressure to do, was to share everything?
Yeah, I remember because I love therapy. I go to therapy a lot, and I just love it. I love psychology. I love understanding why I am the way I am, why other people are the way they are. I'm just interested in it.
I started working with a psychologist earlier this year, and I can't believe
how
positive an impact it's had. I was chatting to Dermot Whelan about this, and he had a really good way of putting it, and he was like, when you talk to someone like a psychologist or therapist or whatever, it's like they lift up the bonnet and they look at your engine and they say, well, this is how your one works. But not everyone has the same engine underneath. And sometimes it's nearly like a way of learning to give yourself a bit of a break. Because you can beat yourself up for not being good at certain things or thinking a certain way. Is that how you found it?
Do you know what? My therapist would always say to me, she's like, the way you speak to yourself is just like, and Paul will pull me up in it as well, like the negative, I'm so hard on myself for everything. And he's always like, will you give yourself a break? And we'd give everyone else around us a break, and we'd go absolutely, like, take your time. But I think the internal dialogue and the standard we hold ourselves to is unrealistic. And you wouldn't expect that for your friends or your partner. You would give them that little bit of grace. But I just feel like with ourselves, it's like, no, but if it's me, like, I should be doing more and I should be doing better. And the more I've gone to therapy, I went for it originally for grief. And then I've just found, I just am obsessed with like understanding who I am. And obviously who I am has changed so much as well over the years, and who I am as a parent and how best to navigate all those relationships in my life. And I've never gone to a therapy session and not felt like I've gained some sort of knowledge. And I think it makes you a nicer person, more understanding person of others, which I think is so important to like understand that not everyone is like you. Or, you know, if someone's rude to you on the street or whatever, it makes you think they could actually be going through something. And, you know, you might want to go, oh, fuck them anyway, they're so, you know, they're such a horrible person, but maybe they're just going through a tough time. And it gives you that like understanding of not everyone is in that headspace that you're in that moment. And I just think it's so important to have that little bit of space to just offload. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, I don't have anything to talk about this week, and then all of a sudden we've like figured the whole world's problems out. And I love talking, as you know, love chatting. And I just think it's so interesting to sit down and like delve into psychology. I would love to like get into psychology a bit more, because I just find it so interesting.
I am loving this conversation so much that I'm like, oh my God, like you have a business to run and I'm still here chatting away.
I don't even want to look at my phone and what's coming up for
me. So we'll fly through the rest of these. I want to know now, what is the best phone call you've ever received?
Do you know what? Because obviously I've had loads of lovely moments in my life, but we were talking about this on the way here. The phone call we got to say we got our house. That was like this house that we were in. It was our first house that we ever bought, and we're in it almost 3 years. And obviously we'd put our mortgage deposit into the business. So like we had to put all that on hold. And eventually we got to the point where we could buy. And I fell in love with this house when I couldn't afford it. And I made him go and view it with me. And he was like, we can't afford this house. I was like, I know, but like I'm a dreamer. And I was like, it's the vision board. And we worked really hard, and it went off the market, and then it came back on the market. Anyway, timing was right. And we went into this closed bid auction, and it was horrific.
That happened to our house.
Oh my God, it's horrible.
So they called ours a closed envelope bid?
So you don't know what anyone else is bidding, and they'll just go with the highest. So I was like, this is cruel, because I don't want to lose it over like a small amount, but also can only go so far in your budget.
So here's one I've never spoken about with the closed envelope bid. And we were the ones who came out luckily on the right side of things. I swear to God, we got our house by 150 quid.
Stop it.
Our bid was €150 more than the other person. And the only reason why was that the night before, when we were getting ready to send the email, Ash was like, what if the other person is just
goes
going up in even numbers like we are? And we put an extra 150 quid in. And when we went to put the booking deposit down, the estate agent was like, look, I probably shouldn't be showing you, but I just want you to know. He
was
goes,
meant for you.
In all the years that I've done this, he goes, I've only ever once before seen it come this close.
That's the best €150 you ever spent.
Like, I worked it out over the term of the mortgage. It's like a cent a month or something. But
I remember getting that phone call, because the cutoff was like the Friday. like at lunchtime, and they said like, well, there was only 3 of us in the bid, and I was like, I'd cried my tears over this house, so I knew exactly where my Christmas tree was going to be. Like I had moved in my head. You know, they say don't get attached. I was like, I was there. I used to just drive by it and sit on the wall looking at it, like I was obsessed, and there was no one in it.
Who's your one?
Yeah, no, thankfully there was no one in it. So that would have been weird.
Yeah.
And I remember the phone rang, and it was actually Paul that took the call, because like, again, me allergic, I probably wouldn't have answered. I'd be like, no, I can't answer.
God.
And I heard him be like, oh my God, I've never, because I kind of in my head I was like, if it's not for us, like it's not for us. But like I was devastated. I would have been so devastated. And I remember that feeling of being like, yes. And it was a Friday, and we went straight up and we all got a picture. I must share the picture with you. I have a picture of the 5 of us, and the kids are still in their uniform outside. We didn't even have the keys at that stage.
Amazing.
We had jumped the wall and got a picture outside the house to remember that moment of like excitement. But and I still to this day, like every time I drive up to my house, I just love it. Like I'm such a home bird, and I love spending time at home. So that was like my favourite phone call of the last few years.
That is so gorgeous. That is brilliant. What about the best phone call you've ever got to make?
God, you know what? I have struggled with this one. We were talking about this in the car again on the way here, because I was like, some of them I just couldn't get my head around answering. I think it's because I hate making phone calls. So because I don't like receiving them, like I'm the type of person that even when we're ordering food, I'm like, will you order? Even if he's not getting anything, I'm like, will you order it? I have this weird like, I don't like live conversation. So I'll send you a 6-minute voice note. Yeah. But do you ever have that awkwardness where they can't hear you and you're like, and they're losing signal, and I just find the whole thing so embarrassing.
I get this actually with my mum loads, where the two of us are really bad at like judging the flow of a conversation on the phone, so it ends up like it's stressful.
And you would think with your job you'd understand that flow.
100%. There's just certain people, it even happens sometimes like on the radio, where you get a caller and for whatever reason you just can't sync up with conversation.
I find that with live conversation. Obviously here it's different because you can see each other, right? Yeah. But on a phone, I give myself the ick every time I make a phone call. I'm like, and the way, and I'm so awkward. And so I actually can't answer that one for you, purely because I can't think of any conversation or any phone call that I've had to make that has stood out to me other than actually embarrassing the life out of myself.
That's fair. Yeah. I would leave the room if I ever have to make a phone call. Has your phone ever gotten you out of a tricky situation?
I mean, every day when I put on my Google Maps, because I'm like, my sense of direction is so bad. Yeah. Has it got me? It's probably got me into more tricky situations than out of them. Do you know what? Only time I ever had to do that was when there was a fire in our estate, and again, I felt so weird making that call, because I was like, it's maybe someone else rang. Like you know that typical thing of like a fire alarm goes and we all just sit and we're like, surely it's not a real fire, but there was a fire, and It was during the night, and I was pregnant.
Was it in the housing estate?
A car was on fire in our housing estate, it was somewhere we lived before. And I woke up. It was the summertime, and I opened the windows because I was pregnant and I was overheating, and I could hear all this kind of noise. You know, obviously metal was like burning, and you're kind of going, surely someone else would have rang, but I did ring, and then but it was so awkward. I was like, oh my God, this is actually sorry. Now that I think of it, I've had one terrible phone call I had to make. Was when I was in my parents' house and Harry broke his leg on a trampoline, and I had to ring 999 for an ambulance because and actually I needed sedating more than he did. It was horrific.
Oh God, love him.
And it was like 3 months before our wedding, so in all our wedding photos he's in like full cast. He had a double fracture on his leg. So those type of phone calls are very scary. I think I've blocked it out of my mind because they're not a nice phone call to have to make.
And also as a parent, like you literally would do anything to like swap positions with
I was like, snap my leg here and like just take it off. You can take my leg. He was hysterical, and then I had to ring Paul to meet us at the hospital. But thankfully I was in my mum's house, so I had my sister and my stepdad who actually had to calm me down more than him. Yes. Because I thought I'd be someone in crisis, and I've been in crisis where I've been okay. That situation I was not good. No. Yeah. I was petrified. It was just a freak accident, the way his cousin was jumping down at the same time and the thing came up. But when we went in, they were like, trampolines. Like I think anyone working in the healthcare system is like sick of people with trampolines. But
God, that's an awful experience.
Hard. Yeah, not great.
Okay, look, we'll go through a couple of quick fire questions here because you have a business to run.
I do.
Who is your most called person?
Paul, 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I just ring him like if I'm driving, I'm like, hey. And he's like, hey. I'm like, so. And like we live in each other's pockets constantly. But he's the one person I will ring a million times a day if I'm not with him. Yeah.
Business and personal.
Yeah, or if I'm upstairs, I'm like, I'd love a cup of tea, please. or a glass of wine. Yeah. He's definitely my most contacted. Yeah.
Okay. What's your lock screen?
It is. I have to clear off all these notifications. It's us on holidays.
Lovely.
Yeah. I actually was going to change it to the dog, and then I thought that would be a bit mean, wouldn't it? Like, I need to get a whole family one with the dog in it.
Fair enough.
But it probably will be Riley in no time.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Who's the most famous person in your phone book?
Oh my God. Most famous person. I don't think I've anyone famous.
People are always really mortified with this question as well. They're
I actually don't think I'm not like in famous circles. Do you know what I mean? I actually don't think the last person I rang was my doctor. So I'm like, this is not famous.
Who's the most famous person you've ever seen wearing Fort Dark gear? Have you ever seen?
Frankie Bridge from the Saturdays.
Nice.
And my inside like teen me is screaming. I went to every Saturdays gig ever, and she bought, by the way, from us. So I think her stylist got it onto her first, and then now she's bought. So then we started sending her bits, but she actually wore it before. Like we were like, I was like, how did she get Fort Dark? Oh
Brilliant.
my God, she's so lovely. She posts it all the time, and then I had messaged her saying thanks for posting it, and then she replied, and I was like, oh, dead. And I sent it to my sister because we were big, and still am, like big Saturdays fans, and we were just dying inside. Every time she mentions us, I'm like,
class.
I love her. She's amazing.
That is great.
Yeah.
What's the last photo you took on your phone? What's the story behind it?
Oh,
I feel like it's going to be the dog.
It is. Oh no, it's actually okay. If you go with photo, it was a screenshot of a nice jacket that I wanted to buy. It's Grace Beverly is wearing it.
Lovely.
And I thought, lovely. I'm really into that. I'm trying to think, is there anything more interesting? Remy and me having chips yesterday. We went for the boys were having Harry was playing a match, and she's allergic to being that like sideline kid. She's like, absolutely not, it's too cold. So we went to Avoca and had lunch.
Lovely. Very nice. Then last question for you, Rosie. Is there anything that you've learned about yourself through your phone over the last few years?
You know what? I think, again, from therapy and just growing as a person, I think understanding that your value doesn't come from likes. And I think especially being on social media, and I think we're all a bit guilty of it, not just people that work on social media, but the validation you can get and that instant boost from people liking things or commenting nice things, it's lovely, right? And it's a lovely ego boost, right? But if your whole worth comes down to that, it can be very fragile, because at any moment someone can just go, I don't like you anymore, or, you know, you've pissed me off or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you could say something controversial on a podcast and be cancelled in the morning.
Yeah.
And if your whole self-worth about you and who you are as a person comes from validation from usernames or strangers on the internet, I just think it's a dangerous place to get into. And I think I've really learned to put my value in who I am as a mom, as a wife, as a friend, as a sister, as a daughter. I think your real relationships outside of your phone, and you will continue those relationships in your phone as well. But just, I think it's so important to remember the bigger picture, that if the phone was gone in the morning, who are those people you're still going to be in contact with, and that you'd walk to their house to get to them, you know? And I think as much as I live my life online and I have an online business and I know the value of online, I do think for your own self-worth, it's really important to make sure that you value you as a person, not from outside validation.
What a lovely way to finish this episode. I could have spoken to you for another 5 hours.
I know, we've so much left in us.
But I really enjoyed that. And thank you for being so open and honest about everything. And thank you for sharing your phone truths.
Thank you so much.
Well, friends, Phone Truths is brought to you by my friends in Sky Mobile, and now everyone can expect more. So I'm a Sky Mobile customer myself these days. I've been all over the country, and honestly, I found it amazing. And speaking of amazing, let's talk about the brand new iPhone 16, which is available now on Sky Mobile. So look, you do know me. I'm a proper nerd, and when it comes to tech, the iPhone 16, it's possibly the ultimate dream phone, all right? Listen to some of these features. For instance, you've got camera control. It gives you an easier way to quickly access camera tools so you can take the perfect shot in record time. The improved ultra-wide camera lets you take incredibly detailed macro photos and videos, whilst the 48-megapixel Fusion camera captures stunning high-resolution images. And to top it all off, with Sky Mobile, you can get your hands on the new iPhone 16 from just €30 a month, plus get unlimited data, calls and texts for just €15 extra a month for life. So in a world of less, you can always expect more with Sky Mobile, Ireland's newest network. Based on a 36-month credit sale agreement, price without credit €1,065, SIM, 12-month minimum term, unlimited data, standard texts and calls. Further terms and credit check apply.